Okay. So Clara, we've created a quick start AI governance diagnostic. So this is for folks who are just getting started with AI governance work or just kind of have been doing some work and want to see where they are. It's called a quick start for a reason, in that it is not a super like it's not gonna take you 4 hours to get through. There are tools like that out there, and we think they're amazing. And the reason that we created this was because we felt like schools needed a really quick way to start conversations around where they were and where they needed to go next. So we're going to just go into this tool and kind of orient you to the document. And we'll have in other videos, we'll do a much deeper dive into each of the elements of the rubric when we talk about our AI governance blueprint. But for right now, let's just kind of orient you to the document. So in the first part, there is a little bit of a protocol. We have some ideas for how you might use the diagnostic with, your teammates. Um, use it as sort of a self-assessment tool as a starting point for conversations. We made some assumptions when we started this document. And so, important to kind of read through those and make sure that your organization is in a place, is ready to kind of have these kinds of conversations. We also gave you some key terms to kind of think through, if you've heard us talk before about AI literacy and AI governance and kind of how those differ. So we wanted to make sure we're kind of starting out with some shared language as well. And then, Claire, you want to talk us through the checklist? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So this is sort of the absolute foundation. So it's not a catch-all for AI governance, but again, this is for you to do sort of a quick diagnostic of where you are now. So there are some things that you can address inside of your policies and check off. Do you have these specifically addressed in your policies? This could be something like wearable technology, like smart glasses. Do you have policies for whether they can be used, and if so, where they can be used? For instance, you may not want to permit smart glasses around restrooms or staff rooms, and other things that's part of this checklist has to do with consent forms. Consent forms are changing now because of these new technologies. Other examples could be whether you have developed ethical principles for use that you can then use to develop your AI literacy curriculum, and also intellectual property policies. Other things that you need to have checked is who is your AI governance point of contact? If there is an incident, if there are questions, or concerns, or confusion, who should they go to with these questions? And schools do this a little bit differently. Some have one person who's the point person, an AI governance officer. Other schools have an oversight committee. The key point is that as part of basic infrastructure, you need to have a point of contact. Also, escalation protocols, review and revision cycles. We've talked about that previously in other contexts. And then vendor monitoring. Who's going to monitor the vendors and communicate with vendors and ensure that exit plans are in place. And then very importantly, and this is ongoing work, legal and compliance updates. And we know this is ongoing work because we are seeing not only that new laws are coming in that guides the use of this technology, but also that existing laws are being interpreted in court cases that are taking place for us to understand how it applies in practice. So vendor contracts, data privacy protocols, academic integrity policies, and then federal and state and sometimes even district regulations that specifically applies to AI tools have to be part of that checklist as well.
So if that first part is a checklist, do you have it in place or not? The next part is really about kind of that deeper dive and doing a self-assessment and really asking ourselves, where are we in terms of our proficiency and our maturity as an organization? So there are 7 different domains, and in later videos, we're going to go into each of these domains more specifically, but really kind of would challenge you to think through in each domain wrestle with that question, that essential question a little bit, and then start to map where on that rubric do you find yourself. Are you more siloed as an organization? Um, or are you starting to move toward a more coordinated approach? Is your approach more systemic and really starting to make its way into that systems thinking? And then the last challenge is really, is it dynamic? Like, can you be adaptable in the face of change and uncertainty? And so, really, ultimately, that's what we're hoping folks can shift to. We also have you thinking not only in terms of like that organizational approach and your response, but also in terms of the like, are you just reacting to things that are happening? Are you being responsive to things that are happening in real time? Are you moving towards proactive and really kind of anticipating what might happen versus that truly like you're looking beyond the scope of your building, beyond the scope of your district, at what's happening in the world and anticipating how putting in place protocols and measures that are going to help you sort of think about that in a kind of an immersion sense. So really that's kind of the trajectory that we're looking for people to think through. And hopefully the language here, while not, super specific, is going to give you kind of starting language and starting things to think about to really help you have some of those conversations and think, where are we now? Where are we headed? And what might need to be different if we're going to get there?
Perfect. And then there are different domains where you would need to do this diagnostic work. First one is the legal and regulatory compliance. This is often done at school leadership and district level in a collaboration with legal advisory or attorneys who are helping schools identify where they are on their journey. And whether you're using sort of existing legal frameworks or whether you are dynamic and moving into this emerging landscape of regulation and more anticipatory in that work. And then the next domain has to do with tool evaluation and procurement. Because all of this technology have so many new functionalities that are coming so quickly and are constantly being updated, really important to get a sense of where you are in your journey to understand the process of approving technology and what gets evaluated of the technology. Is it a bit ad hoc? Is it still a little bit siloed? Maybe there's no real awareness. Maybe individual staff members are using their own tools and nobody really knows who's doing what, and it's a little bit reactive. Or is it moving, or perhaps already has moved towards more dynamic, where you have a monitoring system, you understand emerging tool patterns, you understand how to respond to updates as they happen, and more anticipatory in your approach to tool evaluation as well as procurement of new technologies. And then domain 3 has to do with risk. How do you identify potential risks or actual risks beyond just data privacy? And who's responsible for monitoring that? Do you have an oversight committee? Who's in that committee? Or is it one person that needs to be formally put in place for that position? Often here we talk about behavior when we talk about risk. And so it's not naturally a job that lends itself to IT, because IT is working on other things, both hardware, software, and then cybersecurity. This is really about what happens when the AI is out in the school community. And again, there, is it a little bit siloed? Different departments are doing different things. Nobody really clear on what the risks might be and how they deal with them. Or are you moving to or have already reached a more dynamic AI use culture inside of your community, where departments are communicating across teams, sharing best practices, and using scenario planning to identify potential risks and deal with actual risks that schools are facing now in these sort of quickly moving AI technology days. And then incident and response escalation is domain number 4. If an AI incident occurs, would it be recognized as an incident? What happens there? Who should stakeholders contact? If families have questions, who do they go to? What actions should be taken? Do you have the mechanisms in place to both react to the scenario and also reflect and improve after your initial response? This has everything, involves everything from communications department to your safeguarding and well-being teams. And again, here it moves from siloed, coordinated systemic dynamics and questions to prompt your reflection on where are you now in your journey and what needs to take place in your school in order to move towards a more dynamic and anticipatory culture. And then, Julie, I don't know if maybe you will go through some of the other domains that we have here.
Sure. So, we've alluded to the human part of this before, right? But really thinking about how your organization makes decisions, and especially about AI adoption. But are there clear rules for decision making? Do people is there a coordinated approach to that? What's the process for gathering evidence and reviewing evidence? What are those thresholds that you have set in place to when decisions need to be made versus when you're discussing them and or continuing to learn about them? What kind of impact data are you using to evaluate the effectiveness of your decisions, right? So all of those things are part of that decision-making quality. And I think the final piece of that is, does it change with the person who's making the decision, or can everyone say, like, we're making high quality decisions and here's how we know? So really kind of thinking through that process and what that looks like in your organization is all part of that domain. And then the next one is around engagement and public trust. So, how are you engaging stakeholders? Do your stakeholders need different things in order to be engaged? And really kind of exploring that. How do people get informed? How do people learn about the decisions you're making? And the AI initiatives that are part of your organization. What norms do you have around building public trust and transparency? And your efforts, how are they validated in people's perception of public trust in your organization? So really kind of thinking through those components is part of domain 6. And then our final domain, domain 7, is really about thinking strategically about integration. So, how do your governance efforts align to the goals, strategic goals of your organization? How do they, sort of interface with the mission of your organization, um, and how are you kind of facilitating that alignment, right? How do people know and see that what you're doing around AI is connected to the work that they do every day, and again, those overall big strategic goals that you have as an organization? Can people connect the dots no matter who you're talking to in the organization, not just the decision makers?
Yeah, really well said, and very importantly, if just for logistics purposes, we are sharing a copy that is a copy that you can edit, so you'll be able to write directly in the document and make it your own and fill in the information that you need to fill in. We know that these answers are um, responses are going to be a little bit different for all schools, depending on where they are, what curriculum they have, the age groups of students, and the mission of the district. And we want you to take this on as your own tool, as a diagnostic starting point for where you are on your journey forward in the use of AI.
Absolutely. And we're, Claire and I are kind of nerds about this stuff, so we're really curious about how it's working in reality. So we would love to hear from you. So as you do use this diagnostic tool, we'd love for you to write to us and tell us how you're using it, or tell us how you would change it so it works better for you. We're always looking to improve. So there's an email address in the document itself, and would love to hear from you.